All right, here's the next episode. I was hoping to have this one be a close to startup video, but I kind of got sick last weekend. I ended up not being able to work on the truck, so I'm kind of a weekend behind from where I want to be. I wish I was a little bit farther, but I've had a few delays, and then that not having the ability to work for an entire weekend definitely delayed some things. I'm trying to remember. I think the last video I did a check on the AC pressure to make sure my braze lines worked. So yeah, if you want to check that video out, I discussed that a little bit, but I had removed everything just to kind of do some more work in there. And now I'm finalized, so I have the AC compressor mounted. There's my new braze lines coming up. This will go into the condenser. The other line is up there. And then there's still a line that goes across here that also goes into the condenser. Still have to mount that up once I get the front kind of buttoned up. I did build my heater hose lines. I still need to get a clamp for these two where they go into the water pump. But so the interesting thing about this water pump is there's actually two different hose sizes. So I believe the top is 5/8. I'm sorry. Yeah, 5/8, and the bottom is 3/4. Where the lines go into the heater core, and this line, those fittings are 3/4. So I ended up buying a ICT 5/8 to 3/4 adapter, which I ran after kind of this thing. And so that kind of adapts the line. That way the 3/4 can go into the heater core. So I've got those all kind of finalized. That's good. I'll probably just run up to the local auto parts store and pick up. I need to make a list because I need quite a few hose clamps. I need one for each of these. I need a couple for my radiator coupler. If you've seen my one video, I've got a coupler for the lower, which goes from here down to the lower radiator. I need a couple hose clamps for that. I'm going to hose clamp that, and then use the kind of pinch fittings on here and at the bottom. I'll probably use the pinch fittings on here. I did get an upper, so I kind of made this to kind of give me the general shape. And I ended up finding now I gotta find it. Oh, here it is. So I ended up finding this as a one-piece molded that is the same shape. The interesting thing is this is actually from a very large, I mean, I've probably got enough to make 3 other radiator hoses with how long this is. I believe it was a hose for a Chrysler Sebring, like a very old model. But yeah, I ended up finding a section of it that matched. It was really hard to find an actual... For one thing, I couldn't find a hose that went the bottom part that goes this way. I couldn't find any hoses that do that. All of them went the other way, like that way. So I ended up finding that. I'll have the part number once I do the full build, but I trimmed it up, so that should work. There might be a little bit more trimming. I've got a lot of the vacuum done. So let me get some light in here. So I have the brake booster. The line comes around here. Check valve, oh, I'm sorry, the Y. This is the Y from the factory one. Goes into a check valve and then into the breather of the motor. The bottom part of the Y goes into another check valve, which goes into the electric vacuum pump, which, if you saw my last video, I welded a bracket up from the stock Colorado bracket and got that mounted on the motor. I still haven't mounted this part up yet, so, you know, I could do this, shorten all this up, and then that would be pretty factory. But I'm actually running a catch can. So I have the catch can up there. I ordered that plate. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but there's a plate that they sell at Colorado Canyon Enthusiast that kind of mounts right here. There's a little circle for your washer fluid, and the plate comes all the way to about right here. It actually mounts off of this bolt. And it's so you can run your winch controller and S-pods or whatever type of lighting you want. It's basically just a solid aluminum plate that you can mount all your kind of accessories on there. So I've got that ordered. It hasn't came yet, but where it comes right here, I'm going to build an L bracket, and I'm going to mount the catch can right here. There should be enough room from what I've looked at mocking up the radiator and everything, but the catch can should fit right here. And then I'll run these hoses and finish up the vacuum. The breather, this is just kind of a mock-up. I was playing around with different routing configurations. The one I've settled on is I'm actually going to run this underneath the throttle body across. The T right here will end up about right here and go straight into the intake. There's the intake. So that T will go to the intake tube, and that will be all set. I did get my weather stripping here. As you can see, it didn't go all the way to the firewall, but I'm happy with that. I'm just gonna leave it like that. I don't see that causing me too many issues. The factory one, I had the GM Performance one. That one really wasn't, I mean, like fully sealed to the side there, so I think the way I have it now is pretty good. I can't complain. You can kind of see the nice big opening there, so I think we're good. I did get some, I believe this was 5/16 line. So the expansion tank, you have your, this is the line that goes to the radiator, which will be reusing the stock one. This was the line that went, that's your steam line, which actually goes to the motor. So on the Colorado, it's up in the intake valley, beneath the intake manifold. There's the line goes there. It's actually this line right here. Yeah, that goes down into the intake valley. So on this motor, it comes right here. I tried to stretch it, but trying to get it underneath the intake the intake and everything, it was just kind of really hard, and I didn't really like the way it was routing. So I bought about 5 feet of it. It's coiled up right there. I haven't ran it yet. Once I mount the radiator, I'm going to get some clamps to clamp this to this and just run them parallel across here, around, and then the one will split into the radiator, and then the other one will kind of come up underneath and go inside there. So that's the goal for that. That should work. I've got the fuse box. It's not fully mounted yet. It's just kind of sitting here. I was just kind of mocking up, getting stuff ready to throw the battery back in. I did install the alternator. So the alternator is installed and torqued. You can kind of see. So I've got my plug where I've clearanced. It's fully seated. I've got some heat wrap around it that's kind of pushed up against the block. This is the factory Colorado Alternator Wire. I haven't final installed that, but it's kind of loose here. Kind of doing the general routing, and then it'll come up, and then it mounts right here onto the fuse box. So that will be my next task, is to kind of finalize that, get it kind of zip tied and mounted. I'll mount the fuse box, and then I'll probably start mounting up the battery. I was trying to wait and kind of do that until I got the plate. I should have the plate hopefully soon. I know they're kind of back ordered at the moment, but we'll try to finish that up. I have the fuel line, or I'm sorry, the oil lines done. So let me go underneath here. So here's our oil filter. Plenty of clearance from the sway bar. This one is actually shorter. I found out this is actually the oil filter that was recommended by the oil pan company. And it's actually a little shorter than the Silverado one that is the motor that's in here. So I just have this in here as mock-up, but when I actually put the first thing of oil in here, I'm going to switch this out to the actual Silverado one, which will sit probably about that much lower. I have one. I don't have it mounted because it's the one I'm going to run on the second oil change. My plan is to run this motor for probably about maybe 100 miles or so, just to kind of get things flushed through, and then I'm going to do an oil change on it just to get whatever's in there from some break-in. There's a lot of new components in there, so I'll go ahead and switch stuff out. So I'm not going to run like really, really good oil at first. Just kind of get it, through a few heat cycles. Few heat cycles for the diffs once I rebuild those, because I'll rebuild those before I start driving it around. So I'll run that through a few heat cycles, change the engine oil about 100 miles, put a little bit better oil in there at that point, and then run it to about 500 miles when the diffs will be due for their first change after break-in. And then I'll do another oil change, and then at that point I'll run my regular oil at my 5,000 mile intervals, and then I'll put, I'll be changing the filters at that time. All right, so anyways, getting back to the oil. So I have the AN lines mounted. They're attached to my bracket that I built off the engine mount, and they kind of loop around here. They sort of touch right here, only this one, but it's not too bad, and I have this nice protection on there. And then I have them mounted onto our adapter here. Hopefully you can see all the clearances there. But yeah, we're pretty good right there. The transmission, there's my hardline to AN adapters. Clean that all up. I have the bracket. I showed that in another video. But yeah, I have those running right on top. And they kind of come through here. And then I just have them bagged up. I've got them cleaned out, so I've bagged them up until I'm ready to install those onto the actual hard lines that I have here that I've shown in previous videos. Let's see what else. I think that's pretty much it. I do have my little jumper right there. I've got that all mounted out of the way. Hopefully that works, but should have plenty of clearance for the exhaust. All right, let me get to the fuel lines. I was hoping to have the fuel lines done this weekend, but I had some issues, so let me get over there and video that. All right, so now we're under here. So my fuel lines. So I found out my hard lines right here, I ended up kind of taking the Silverado drive shaft apart a little bit more to kind of mock it up. So this is about where it's going to go. And as you could see, I have plenty of clearance for the fuel lines. That was my main concern and why I haven't ran the fuel lines yet. Let me set that back down. I was kind of worried that the drive shaft would interfere. The exhaust, I mean, I'll be building that, so I can run that however I want. But as you can see, it's going to have to come down right about in here But if you can see right here, we have the two bolts, or the two holes. This is where the transmission kind of skid cross bolt or cross thing that AEV cells goes. So right about here is where it turns down to go underneath the transmission pan. So I should have plenty of clearance right here to where I don't have to worry about the exhaust coming and then coming down. It's going to be turning down pretty much right in this area. And I could figure that out. I'm not going to run the AAV thing here. I think I'm going to go with the CBI skids. I'd like to run the AEV setup with the bars and everything. That may still be the route that I go. I'm kind of debating that. I mean, it's going to be a little bit before I pick up skids, but I want to run the pipe as close to factory as possible. That way, any skid plates will work. So, as you could see, I have the fittings on all the fuel lines. What ended up happening was, I don't know if you could see this silver. You can kind of see it on that one. You can kind of see it on this one. So, I don't know what happened with these AN lines, but if you saw in an earlier video, I'm using different colors for different things. So, these were purple. So, I bought purple line. Purple fittings. That way I knew purple was fuel. You could see on what I showed earlier, blue is oil and red is transmission fluid. I don't know what was up with these ones, but I tried to run the lines on 3 of these fittings and they stripped out. They stripped when I was putting the nut onto the actual fitting right here. It just stripped that out on 3 of the fittings. I don't know if I got a bad batch or what. I'm not really sure. It's the first issue I had with these AN lines. I basically had to order all brand new fittings. The straight right there is one that I never used. I didn't attempt that one because I was so frustrated with it. So we'll see what happens when I get these new fittings. But once I hook that up, I'm pretty much set. The drive shaft's going to clear, so we're good there. The exhaust will clear, so we've kind of got that finalized. I think we're all good there. I still have to flush the hard lines, so I'll probably do that next weekend once I build after I build the AN lines and I've got them where I want them. I will take those off, flush them, flush the hard lines, and then bolt everything in for good. Then I can put the intake manifold on for good, and we can start buttoning up the underhood and start working on software and get this sucker started. My intent was to have it started by 4th of July, which is actually next weekend. That may still happen since I'll have an extra day to work on this, having the 5th off. But we'll see. It's going to be close to get it on that day. But yeah, I wish I was farther along. I mean, I would have had this figured out. I would have ran into this issue last weekend and probably had all that other stuff done to where this weekend I would be done working on software for next weekend to start it up. But with me losing the weekend from being sick, it's just, that's the way these things go. But I think that's pretty much as much update as I have at the moment. Like I said, let me get up to the front again. All right, yeah, so I'm going to close this out. Like I said, if anybody's got any specific questions, want to know something that I may not have covered or may not have talked about, go ahead and comment. I can answer it in the comments, or I can add it to an upcoming video. But hopefully next video, a lot more of this will be complete. A lot more of that will be complete. We'll have fuel lines on, we'll have the intake on. We'll basically have everything ready to run except for the exhaust. That's going to be basically the final last thing that I do. I want to make sure everything's good. It starts. We're all good. And then I'll start running the exhaust. I don't intend to put the belts on until the very end either. I don't want to run any of the accessories until I actually get it to start. Once it starts, then I can, once it starts and we finalize that, or I keep saying finalize, and we verify that we have no leaks with the AN lines, oil, transmission, feels good, then we can work on putting the belts on and filling her up with coolant so we can inspect and make sure we have no coolant leaks. And then we can go from there. Once everything's leak free, then we charge up the AC and build the exhaust and do the gears, the sliders, the leafs, and get back to doing some off-roading. Alright, I'll catch you guys on the next one. And if you haven't subscribed, I hate to be the guy that on videos that tells you to subscribe, but if I get 100, I can change the YouTube channel and actually not have a bunch of stupid numbers and letters at the end, and I can actually put, Rado V8 swap as the actual YouTube URL. So that would really help. I think I'm only like 10 away. But it's not a requirement. I'm not looking to become the next YouTube sensation. I just kind of want to document this so that anyone in the future can do this a little easier than the headaches that I've had to go through. All right, I'll catch you guys on the next one.